Hi everyone, it's me, Lori Lytle from Inner Goddess Tarot. So today I'd like to continue my Intro to Tarot series. So we are up to lesson 10 in this series, and it's been a while since I've done one, so my apologies for that. You may notice now that my office is gold, which is fantastic compared to that sort of teal green it used to be. So welcome to my golden office and welcome to Intro to Tarot lesson 10, a continuation of our discussion of the tarot court cards. So last time we just kind of scratched the surface of what the court cards are, and how to get a handle on them by looking at their rank. You know, are they page, knight, queen, or king? And also the element the suit that they're connected with, because that already can give us a lot of information about what is going on in the card. But now let's take it a little bit further and start to think about, you know, how do we actually interpret these when they come up in a reading? Because a lot of people are puzzled by the court cards. I mean, what do we do with this card that's the image is just a figure, just a person at first glance anyway. So it's not as easy to get into the story that's there as some of the other illustrated minor cards, right? So let's talk about what these court cards might mean in a reading, how to interpret them, and how to get comfortable with working with them, right? So I've broken it down to, I guess, 3 ways that you can look at the court cards. And in all honesty, in one reading, it may mean all 3. It may mean only one. It may mean a couple, right? So be open. You don't have to be too rigid to interpret, you know, just by one way or the other. There may be many levels going on there, so be open to, you know, whatever the cards have to say to you. So first of all, let's talk about personality. So the court card says personality traits rather than just a person. Because sometimes when those court cards come up, you can easily identify or recognize yourself in the card or someone else, another person in your life, right? So for example, you know, for maybe the Queen of Cups comes up and I'm like, oh yeah, that is so me, that emotional, intuitive queen. I recognize her as me, right? Or you may see, you know, someone in your life as the less mature but full of energy and intellect and sharp-witted Page of Swords. I mean, you may immediately say, oh, I know, yeah, I know who that is, right? So of course we want to listen to that. But for me, more often than not, when the court cards come up in a reading, they are representing some aspect of the person that I'm reading for. So some aspect of their personality, of their outlook, of their attitude, of the way that they're behaving in a particular situation. And of course, they may be people around us as well, because if you're asking a question where other people are really involved, you know, in like a relationship or career related. So we want to be open to that as well. But with the idea that either the court cards are representing how we are behaving in a situation, um, or they may be suggesting a way to behave or an attitude to take that will serve you well in a situation. So depending on the context, depending on the spread that you're using, the position of the card, that kind of thing. So, but it can be reflecting who we are now, how we're behaving in a situation, or how it might be helpful or detrimental to behave in a situation. So another way of looking at the court cards is seeing them as a stage in development or a stage in progression, right? So for example, when we look at the pages, they're at the beginning of something. They're new. They're just starting out. They're immature but enthusiastic, right? So this could relate to a person, you know, somebody who is at the beginning of their journey, are young, literally or figuratively, and they're just at the beginning of a journey. But we can take it further than that. So like if we ask about a career path, for example, and the page comes up, then we see, okay, there's a potential for something really wonderful. It wants to start here, but it's early days, that kind of thing. Whereas The knights are still, they're still immature, but here we see some forward movement, some progress, a feeling of action, of exploring, of pushing boundaries. So a situation that's gone a little bit further along, or a person, their stake in the situation or the maturity is a little further along. The queens are, of course, mature. They understand themselves, but they still want to grow and increase and expand. So it may be that you're, well, how can I say? You're at a very mature stage in a particular situation, but there's still room for more. There's still room to give or to expand further. Whereas when we reach the kings, they are also mature, but there's a feeling of stability there. They are holding where they are. They want to consolidate where they are. They're happy with what they've achieved and they want to hold on to it. So it may have a feeling of reaching completion or reaching the highest that you can go in a particular situation. Okay. And then the last category I want to talk about is seeing the court cards as an event or a situation, because sometimes it just does not make sense to see those court cards as people or as personality. So they may be representing something else. So for example, on a very literal note, the pages can often represent a message or news, so an invitation or something new starting, as I mentioned before too. The knights, as I say, they urge us to take action. So on a literal level, they can represent travel or things moving and changing, so something in a situation that's moving and changing rather than a particular person. And the queens can represent taking a leadership role, or a leadership role becoming available to you, developing and directing something in your life towards completion, but it's not quite there yet. And again, looking at my notes there, the kings often can represent institutions, structures, organizations, responsibility, a goal that's reached completion, or a time when it may serve you well to get expert advice, expert outside advice. So that's a really, really sort of snapshot of what I'm talking about, but keep that in mind that sometimes the court cards may not be people at all. They may be representing some kind of situation or event that's coming into play. Okay, so how do we know which approach is the right one of those three that I mentioned? Well, keep in mind the question or the context first of all. So when you're having the reading, are you asking about yourself? Because as I mentioned, most often for me, the court cards are an aspect of me or the person that I'm reading for. But be open to other possibilities. Are you asking about a relationship? Are you asking about something career related that involve other people? So then it may be, rather than aspects of you, it may be someone else that we're seeing appearing in the cards. But be open to other possibilities. Take a look at the position in the spread. So for example, in the Celtic cross, there's a position in the spread that's something like, external influences. So, and a court card appears there, most likely it's another person, that kind of thing, or another event that has an influence rather than it reflecting you personally. Take a look at how the cards interact with each other. So how do the elements of the court cards complement or contrast each other? Look at how they interact with the other cards, the majors and the minors. See how the story's all playing out there together, and see how it makes sense to interpret it. Does it make sense that it's an aspect of the person, or are we seeing something completely different here? Because usually the majors give us an idea of, the universal, the life lesson, those kind of forces that are happening. And the minors give us a practical side, actions that need to be taken. So see how the court cards figure in there. Are they the figures that are taking the actions, or are they more connected with the major cards? Okay. And lastly, all that being said, trust your intuition. Listen to your gut. Don't deflect that message away. If you get a flash from that card and you just have a feeling of what it is, take a moment, take a breath, listen to your gut, and receive that information. Okay, so why don't we take a quick look at an example, a three-card spread that I pulled earlier, and see what might be going on there. So this is, I pulled from the entire deck, so happily there are core cards in there. From the three that I pulled, or this lesson wouldn't make much sense. So let's take a look and see how you might interpret what's going on here. So the question that I asked, the hypothetical random question that I asked is, how can I be successful in my new job? So imagine somebody comes to you and they only have time for a short three-card reading. They want to know, how can I be successful in my new job? So the first card represents the situation in general, so concerning their new job. And I pulled the Eight of Pentacles. So have a look at this card. What's going on here? I see somebody who's working very hard, buckling down, following routine, following procedure, getting better and better at what they're doing. But there's a feeling of having to follow procedure and repetition, right? Until you get really good at what you're doing. But buckle down, keep your head down, get your work done. That kind of thing. Then the next card is the obstacle in the situation, and I pulled the King of Wands. So now it's getting interesting. Here we have a court card, the King of Wands, right? So, and I should tell you, just to get it so you can get a context, I'm going to show you all three cards. So we had that Eight of Pentacles here, and then we have the King of Wands, and look how they're positioned. So anything strike you before I start talking here? To me, that king is looming large over that little worker in the Pentacles card. Don't you think? Overseeing, watching, larger than life sort of personality there. So who do you think that is? Or what? To me, my gut reaction to that is that is the boss. And it's in the position of a challenge too. So what could be the challenge there? A micromanaging but passionate and involved boss, a fiery boss that expects a lot from you, with long-reaching vision, but maybe not so much of an idea of what's going on right in here and now, in the present, perhaps. Then we have the card representing advice, and we have the Knight of Pentacles. So what do you think about that? Let's see if I can show you all three. Look at how the Knight of Pentacles is facing away from the situation, facing away from the boss. He's not concerned about him. The Knight of Pentacles is very slow and steady, so it kind of echoes what we see in that Eight of Pentacles. Before we had him working on those Eight Pentacles, right? Here the figure is just holding the one, nurturing it, slow and steady, reliable, doing their work, watching things grow, not concerned about all the fire and drama that may be coming from that King of Wands. So this to me feels like the person we're reading for. This is the key. How can I be successful in my job? Buckle down, do the work, slow and steady, don't antagonize the boss, worry about your own work, rather than getting involved in everything else that is going on. But there's a feeling here that steady pentacle energy is going to serve them well, rather than trying to engage with this or challenge this imposing figure. So what do you think? I'd love to know how you would interpret those three cards. Do you see those court cards in a different way, or could they represent something else? Are there other levels there that I don't have time to get to today? I'd love to hear from you. So please comment and let me know what you think. Okay. So now, yes, I've gone on quite long enough, so I'm going to bring it to a close now. So just to summarize, we looked at the court cards as the idea that they could represent personality traits, an aspect of a person, or an attitude that might serve us well. They can be a stage in development. The pages are at the beginning of something, kings are at completion. And then an event or situation, a message, an invitation, a new beginning, travel, can be an institution, right? It can be any of those things that when it just doesn't make sense to be a person or personality. Great. Well, thanks for watching. As always, I encourage you to visit my website, innergoddesstarot.com, for lots of free learning tarot resources, visit my blog for information about tarot, as well as what it's like to be a tarot professional and entrepreneur out in the world. And next time in lesson 11, we're going to look at, oh, I'll check my notes there, 3-card spreads. So I'm going to talk about a few classic 3-card spreads. And I'm not sure, maybe we'll get into creating your own, but that might be in the intermediate level. So using 3-card spreads, and then the class number 12, we're going to look at how to integrate reversals, or what reversals are and how they can fit into your readings. So please stay tuned and come back again for more free tarot lessons from me, Lori Lytle at Inner Goddess Tarot. Thanks. Bye.